Funny thing about people, they only notice you when you've stopped caring. They call it change, but it's really just silence wearing new skin. You stop explaining, you stop defending, and that quiet becomes dangerous. Because that's when the world realizes you were never weak, you were just observing, watching the patterns, studying the noise, waiting for the moment they'd expose their own fear in your reflection. They wanted you harmless, predictable, soft enough to mold, but somewhere between their lies and your patience, something cracked, something ancient, something that no one ever warned them about. That's the sound of the old version dying quietly in the background, while a new one rises, calm, cold, and beautifully unbothered. They don't see it yet, but they will. Oh, they will. You start to notice things differently. Their smiles don't blind you anymore. Their approval doesn't feed you. You've seen too much to be fooled again. The innocence they crushed. It was never destroyed, it was purified. It turned into clarity like smoke clearing after the explosion. And suddenly, you stop needing validation. You stop apologizing for existing. You start walking like the storm that taught you pain. The joker inside isn't madness, it's awareness. It's the realization that laughter isn't joy, it's armor. Every smile hides strategy. Every joke hides intent. You laugh not because it's funny, but because you've finally seen through the illusion. They call it chaos, but to you it's symmetry. It's perfect balance. A dance between pain and power that only the awakened can understand. And that's when you know you've crossed over. You've stepped out of their system of approval and fear. You don't belong to their world anymore. You've built your own, a realm where silence is strength and peace is your rebellion. They thought they broke you, but all they did was teach you how to stop needing. And that's the beginning of something unstoppable. It's fascinating, isn't it? How quickly they turn quiet when you stop explaining yourself. They start to panic, whisper, invent stories. Because silence, real silence, isn't absence. It's presence amplified. It's control. It's the sound of someone who no longer plays by their script. They look at you searching for the version they used to manipulate. But you buried that version deep, quietly, without a ceremony, without a goodbye. They wanted a reaction. You gave them stillness. They wanted drama. You gave them observation. That's when they started realizing the power wasn't in the noise. It was in your restraint. They laughed before. Now they avoid eye contact because they can feel it. The shift, the calm before something they can't explain. It's not arrogance. It's evolution. It's the birth of a mind that doesn't beg for belonging anymore. You start to enjoy it. The silence, the distance, the self-control. You watch how the same people who hurt you now study your calm like it's a puzzle. They wonder how you're breathing so easily after they tried to choke your spirit. But they'll never understand pain taught you rhythm. Chaos taught you focus. And silence, it taught you timing. The art of letting things reveal themselves without lifting a finger. There's a moment when silence turns sacred. When it becomes your language. You don't respond to disrespect. You observe it. You don't chase what's leaving. You release it. You don't argue with ignorance. You outgrow it. That's when they call you cold. But the truth, you're just precise. You've learned that energy is currency and not everyone deserves a transaction. So you sit there unbothered, watching their confusion unfold. They'll call you change. They'll call you distant. They'll call you everything except what you've actually become. And in that freedom, every scar feels like a medal. Every silence feels like a revolution. Every step feels like vengeance. Without violence. Without words. Just presence. Tell me, have you ever watched someone realize they no longer have access to the person they destroyed? At first you try to glue the pieces back together. You think maybe, just maybe, you can restore what was lost. But something inside whispers, why rebuild what was meant to evolve? Every crack, every fracture, they're not weaknesses, they're blueprints. The universe didn't break you to end you. It broke you to rearrange your limits. Now every scar reflects light differently. Every wound tells a story that only power can understand. You begin to realize healing isn't softness, it's refinement. You don't go back to innocence, you ascend to awareness. Pain becomes your sculptor, carving out hesitation, shaping resilience. The same emotions that once drowned you now fuel your rebirth. You're not fragile anymore. You're forged, tempered, precise. Your laughter now carries weight. Your words cut cleaner. Your silence commands room. That's not coincidence. That's mastery earned through chaos. People still expect the old you, the one who apologized too much, who bent too easily, who mistook kindness for currency. But that person's gone. What stands here now doesn't crave peace. It is peace, ruthless, calm, deliberate peace. The kind that doesn't beg to be understood. The kind that makes noise nervous. They sense it when you walk in. That new rhythm, that silent authority, that quiet, dangerous comfort in your own skin. You've stopped patching the cracks. You've learned to let them because you finally see perfection as boring. It's the fractures that make you unpredictable. It's the scars that make you magnetic. You carry them like art now, not shame. You no longer hide your pain. You weaponize it. That's the difference between recovery and rebirth. One seeks normalcy, the other seeks power. So when they look at you with pity, smile. Let them. They're staring at their own misunderstanding. They still see a survivor. But you became something else entirely. You became the aftermath of everything that tried to end you. And in that aftermath, you found clarity. You found control. You found the version of yourself that doesn't just live, it dominates. Tell me, doesn't it feel strange how breaking became the only way to finally become whole? There's a thin line between chaos and clarity, and you've learned to dance on it. The world looks at you now and whispers unpredictable. But what they don't understand is that your unpredictability is precision without permission. You stopped asking for directions. You stopped chasing peace. You found beauty in disorder. The kind that terrifies those who still need control. They see chaos, but you see rhythm. You see art in the destruction. You see purpose in the fall. They wanted obedience. You gave them awareness. They wanted you predictable, but you became poetry written in lightning. You laugh in moments where others would break. You stay calm when storms begin. That's not insanity. That's evolution. That's what happens when a mind stops fearing its own darkness. You learn to sit with your shadows until they started obeying you. Now the same energy that once destroyed you protects you. Freedom has a strange taste, doesn't it? It's bitter at first, cold, empty. But once you swallow it, it burns like truth. It changes how you breathe, how you walk, how you exist. You no longer need to explain why you're different, you simply are. And that's what scares them. Your composure under pressure, your peace inside pain, your ability to smile when they expected you to crawl. They mistake your calm for cruelty. But it's clarity, pure, terrifying clarity. They call it madness because they can't categorize it. They call it ego because they can't control it. But it's neither. It's freedom from their approval. It's the unlearning of dependence. It's living on your own terms even when it burns bridges and expectations. You're no longer in the audience. You're the entire performance. They came to mock. Now they stay to listen. They can't look away. So let them whisper. Let them fear what they can't define. Let them choke on their confusion while you build empires from their doubt. Because this isn't chaos, it's command. It's the quiet revolution of a soul that refused to kneel. You didn't lose your mind. You just stopped renting it out to people who never understood its worth. Tell me, when did you realize the voices calling you crazy were just scared you'd finally found yourself? Silence isn't emptiness. It's incubation. It's where the real work happens, where strength learns to breathe without applause. The world worships noise, opinions, validation, but you disappeared into the dark and started building. You cut the spotlight. You stopped performing. Because true power never announces itself. It arrives uninvited, quiet, focused, sharp enough to slice through doubt without saying a word. You learned that solitude isn't loneliness, it's strategy. It's the space between destruction and resurrection. While they were watching, you were mastering. While they were talking, you were studying. You became dangerous, not because of arrogance, but because of patience. You stopped reacting to every insult. You started collecting every lesson. And now every second you spent unseen is shaping the person they'll soon wish they never underestimated. The dark became your mentor. It stripped you down to truth. No masks, no validation, just raw self-confrontation. You faced the parts of yourself they never could. Your fears, your insecurities, your failures, and you didn't flinch. That's where the transformation began. You learned that pain is just a doorway, and only those who dare to walk through it find the other side of power. People will say you've changed. Of course you have. You evolved in silence. While they repeated their excuses out loud, they're still looking for shortcuts. You're still sharpening your instincts. They chase approval. You chase precision. That's why you move differently now. You've seen what the dark can teach, and it's something light could never understand. So you stay quiet, focus, dangerous in your stillness, because every time they forget you exist, you grow stronger. Every time they think you've disappeared, you're just resetting the state. The dark isn't your enemy. It's your forge. And when you finally step back into the light, you won't be recognized. You'll be remembered. Tell me, have you ever realized that vanishing isn't running? It's reloading. Power doesn't scream. It doesn't beg to be understood. It just exists. Quiet, precise, ruthless in its focus. You don't see real power coming. It doesn't need permission to arrive. It walks into the room and everything changes. That's the kind of presence you've been building. No noise, no announcement. Just consistency so sharp, it cuts through everything fake. You've stopped chasing validation, and that's when the real war begins. The one inside your mind, control. That's the battlefield. Not against others, but against your impulses, against that restless urge to react, explain, or prove something. You've learned to let things fall apart without falling with them. That's discipline. That's where the average break and the extraordinary are born. You don't win by shouting, you win by mastering yourself, by not flinching when chaos knocks, by smiling when everything tries to test your patience. You started noticing the difference between emotion and power. Emotion begs for reaction, power waits for opportunity. You don't respond anymore, you decide calmly, strategically, like a chess player who already knows the end game. That's what unnerves them, the stillness, the unshakable sense that you've stopped playing by their emotional rules. You've detached from approval, and that's why you can't be manipulated anymore. They'll call it arrogant. They'll say you've changed. But what really happened is that you upgraded your standards. You no longer tolerate weak communication, inconsistent energy, or empty promises. You started guarding your peace like it's sacred territory because it is. You realize not everyone deserves front row seats to your evolution. Some people only belong in the echo of your past. So you stand there calm as ever while storms rage around you. Let them test you. Let them misunderstand you. You don't need to raise your voice when your silence already echoes louder than their noise. Because true dominance isn't in the words, it's in the restraint. You stopped proving your worth, and that's exactly when it became undeniable. Tell me, when did you stop arguing and start watching who truly deserved your silence? Every structure is built on one quiet assumption: that you'll obey, that you'll stay asleep, distracted, endlessly scrolling through illusions. They never planned for someone like you to notice the cracks, to see through the polite lies, the fake smiles, the invisible chains. But once awareness starts, it can't be undone. You stop following, you start observing. You begin to question why things are the way they are. And that simple act of questioning terrifies them. You're not rebelling out of anger anymore. You're rebelling out of clarity. You don't throw punches, you withdraw your participation. You don't scream, You simply stop feeding their systems with your attention. That's real rebellion. Quiet, strategic. They can't control what doesn't react. They can't enslave what doesn't seek approval. You learn that walking away from the noise is louder than any protest could ever be. They'll say you're difficult, that you've changed, that you've lost your spark. What they really mean is you've stopped dancing for their comfort. You've stopped existing for their benefit. You stopped explaining your worth to people who never saw it. And now your indifference feels like defiance. They call it ego. You call it boundaries. They call it cold. You call it control. Rebellion doesn't always come with. Sometimes it comes with silence, with a calm that unnerves the loud, with a presence that exposes how fake everything else is. You've stepped outside the loop of pretending. You don't chase trends. You create tempo. You don't join tribes. You build your own path. You stopped needing their map when you realized it was designed to keep you lost. So now you move different. Eyes steady, steps deliberate. They watch you with confusion, because they can't figure out how you broke free without burning everything down. That's the beauty of it. You didn't destroy the system. You just outgrew it. And when you rise without rage, without noise, without seeking revenge, that's when they truly panic. Tell me, when did you first realize obedience was the cage and silence was the key? Before you even speak, they feel it. That shift in air, that quiet tension that follows you into every room. You've changed frequencies. You don't chase attention anymore. You attract it, without trying, without noise. Because energy, real energy, doesn't need words. It announces itself in presence, the stillness in your eye, the posture that says, I've already seen everything you're trying to hide. That's not intimidation, it's alignment. You're no longer pretending. You're being. They used to talk over you. Now they hesitate before they speak, because your silence exposes more truth than their words ever could. That's the new power. You don't have to argue your value. You radiate it. Your energy doesn't beg for respect. It demands it, softly, naturally, without force. You've become fluent in a language only the self-aware can understand. The language of presence, the art of influence without expression. Energy speaks first. Every gesture, every pause, every glance. It's communication beyond vocabulary. You don't need to explain your piece. People feel it. You don't need to justify your boundaries. They sense them. That's the power of calibration, where your aura becomes your strategy. You walk into chaos and suddenly everything slows down. You've mastered the rhythm of restraint. You've become the storm disguised as silent. And that's why they study you now. They mimic your calm. They copy your words. They wonder what changed. But what they don't understand is you stopped being available to chaos. You unplugged from their drama. And that withdrawal rewired your entire presence. You're no longer feeding the noise. You're feeding focus. And that shift made you magnetic, unexplainably magnetic. So when people ask what your secret is, you just smile, because it was never about secrets. It was energy. Purified, disciplined, untamed. You mastered the one thing they never teach: how to hold your peace in a world addicted to performance. That's your edge. That's your dominance. That's your unseen weapon. Tell me, have you noticed how your silence now speaks louder than their entire vocabulary? It started as pain, small, silent, like a flicker in the chest that no one else could see. Then came the chaos, the betrayal, the laughter, the looks that said you won't recover. But you did, not by chance, by choice. You gathered every piece they broke off and built something they'd never recognize. Something stronger, colder, unapologetically alive. They thought they were destroying you. They were manufacturing your evolution. You didn't become bitter. You became precise. Every emotion now has direction. Every move has weight. You don't explode anymore. You calculate. That's what scares them the most. You've stopped playing the victim in their story and started writing your own. A story where the storm doesn't destroy. It cleanses. You're no longer reacting to pain. You're channeling it. You turned their cruelty into clarity, their rejection into rhythm, their doubt into dominance. They whisper that you've changed, but how could you not? You walked through fire and came out knowing how to control the flame. You no longer fear intensity. You are intensity. You no longer chase understanding. You are understanding. You walk differently now. You speak slower. Your presence hums like thunder before the strike. You've become what they never expected. A force born from the ashes they left behind. That's what happens when innocence dies. It doesn't vanish. It transforms. It learns how to defend itself. It learns how to wait. It learns that silence is louder than rage. You are that silence now. Controlled, deadly, beautifully unpredictable. They used to laugh at your pain. Now they flinch at your calm, because they can feel it. That storm you carry quietly inside, and you don't even have to prove it. The energy does it for you. Every step, every glance, every pause. You've become the storm they created, but couldn't contain. You didn't destroy them. You outgrew them, and that's the cruelest revenge of all. Peace, so powerful it unsettles their entire world. Tell me, isn't it strange how the ones who tried to bury you ended up watering your